All right. And we're recording. Sweet. So for Team A, just to kind of recap where we're at, and maybe we bring up Miro. Probably should have had this up. My bad. But let's take a look at Team A. And really, more or less, we need two diagrams. So a site analysis diagram and a form idea diagram. So those are really two separate things. You do not have to connect them. I can't express that enough. We'll connect them in part 2, right? But I do want to get you started in terms of a site analysis because, well, in Studio, let's face it, at the beginning of every project, this is often what we do, is a site analysis. And there's several ways to do it, as I was starting to hint at a little bit. But I do want to go over some of the more advanced things, and this isn't to like really exclude Team B. Obviously, they can still watch these videos, and they can still definitely follow along and still get and grasp these tools. But in our case, we do need a site analysis, and that could be 2D or 3D, and so I'll explain what I mean by that. And of course, a form idea model, which is really kind of what we did outside, except in this case, I want you to come up with some abstract forms. However, keep in mind that it's a composition. It's a composition of forms. And even though I'm letting you have free range, I wouldn't get too fancy with the spices, right? I wouldn't like suddenly make like a crazy jelly bean and be like, this is my model. I mean, I don't know. You could probably go that way too. But there are some key elements that you want. You want some sort of grid. That is required, right? I don't know if I actually put that on there, and I didn't. So let's cover that. We do need some sort of grid element, right? We do need some sort of voluminous element, right? It needs to have some sort of enclosure, even if it is kind of open to the sky, like for instance in this model. And obviously it needs space, which is a given. Everybody knows that, of course, at SAC, that we teach you in architecture class that we don't design objects, we design spaces. Now, of course, objects are required to formulate those spaces, but at the end of the day, I'm more of a Bogoslavian in that sense that we do design spaces, right? So in our case, let's talk about the site analysis diagram first. So I did want to show you some really cool things, but really the manual way, which is what I've dubbed it, is tracing it. And at the end of the day, let's face it, some professors, they don't even want to see a three-dimensional site analysis. They want to see the tried and true two-dimensional site analysis. And let's face it, this is maybe a recap, but we need to add a picture. We need to take that image from Google Earth and we need to scale it in the right way. So maybe a recap, but let's face it, we might need that refresher. So in my case, I'm going to go over to Google Earth and grab that screenshot. Another thing, just in case you're not familiar, we can get the hydrology map. San Antonio. Wonderful. And we can actually grab the topography as well, right? Just to make sure. Now in our case, I gotta find there's San Pedro Park. And oh crap, it still has the building there, I think. I think it does. Oh wait, never mind. Oh crap, it does. That's okay. That's actually more or less the region of that red square that I gave you guys. And I'll put that on Miro, by the way, as well. That way you have a digital copy and you can literally take that and start tracing it, if you will. But in our case, as you can see, it does have a high point and not a whole lot of topography, right? If we start to look at the site analysis, which, don't get me wrong, I know I gave you guys kind of a small square. You're more than welcome to grab more, right? Especially if you wanted to show some more information based on that space. I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit more today, but it really is up to you how much information you really want to add to this project or be inspired from. For instance, I may make something called, I don't know, I'll start making these three-dimensional diagrams. I'm thinking of Kernodle a little bit, where you find certain hot points on your site and we just connect them to a midpoint of our site just to kind of get this unique visual diagram of what is in close proximity to our site. But just for the sake of exercise, let's get into a couple things. Where was I? There we go. We need a screenshot of this as well, and well, if we wanted to match that topography, we'd want to get really realistically the same amount. But this is where it kind of gets interesting. If I wanted to do three-dimensional, I could trace it three-dimensionally too. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. We're going to have to maintain some certain things, but I disregard you from that one because I think it's actually a better idea to model it and then choose whatever camera that I want. Now, don't get me wrong, let's face it, I could do the same thing here, and if I'm pressed for time, which we all are in studio, I could take another screenshot, and I can make multiple drawings too. But if, I don't know, if I was maybe part of the team that was making a site model, right? I definitely, at least in my class, I have you make a physical site model and a digital site model. So this is kind of making that digital site model, if you will. So I'm going to go ahead and make it from a 2-dimensional drawing. So let's zoom out a little bit and take a screenshot. Bless you. More or less. We'll take that screenshot. I believe it's in my downloads. Voila. I don't know if I could take both at the same time. I do think it's one at a time. But as you guys know, if you just type in picture and draw something, we can get there, right? However, I am missing something here. I forgot to make a measurement, right? So I may want to take that measurement. In my case, I'm just going to guess that this is about 30 feet. Let's see if I'm right. Take our little measurement tool from one side to the other. Oh, I was so close, 40 feet. But that is a known dimension, so we don't need to really take a screenshot, right? Fake it till you make it, right? But a little bit of a recap. Let's draw a line. Let's draw it at 40 feet from one side to the other. So I'm going to type in 40 feet. And holy cronoodle. That's a large line. So I may want to change my units because I forgot. By default, it puts it in millimeters. So let's switch it to feet and apply. In our case, the line should still be 40 feet. So if I typed in length, in fact, at the very bottom, it'll tell me how many feet it is. Holy moly! So it looks like it actually changed the scale of the line. So again, this is why I wanted to show you that you do have to verify some things. Let's try drawing that line again at 40 feet. Way better. So there's that 40-foot line. And as you can see, a lot closer, right? So let's take this piece, let's scale it. It's going to ask for a base point, which is that initial point that I started with. And then it's going, hey man, how big do you want it and where are you trying to reference? So I'm going to reference the other side of the street and then move that to 40 feet. And voila, just like that, we have a scaled drawing, right? So just in case you never got that tutorial, I know it's a review for, especially if you've been in my studio or arguably even Bowislav studio. I often do that one for Bowislav as well. Very simple, very effective, and arguably we use it in every single project. But you may have guessed it, the next thing we need to do is trace it. So there are a couple things that we can do. Now in my case, I'm obviously not going to draw and trace this whole thing for a tutorial, but some of the key pointers that I would give are, you know, roads, you know, make a layer for roads, make a layer for sidewalks, you know, all those kinds of things. To be fair, there are some CAD Mapper programs. So like if you were to do CAD Mapper, it will kind of give you like a baseline, but to be honest with you, it's not very good. It often simplifies way too much what actually is going on outside. But it makes sense, especially if I'm in a rural location that doesn't have a lot of streets or buildings or any information except trees. Then sometimes it's kind of nice to get some of these border informations. Or let's say I have like New York and I'm doing a 500-mile radius. Yeah, I might want to start with producing something first. That way I can focus on the part that I really want to make detailed. Does that make sense, guys? Anyway, hopefully making some sense. In our sense though, let's say maybe I took in too much and you know, my studio professor comes back and goes, wow, dude, we don't need this building involved. We just need the adjacent buildings. Okay, well, I'm going to draw another rectangle. Maybe center justified on my side, if you will. Draw that rectangle. I'm going to hit that rectangle. I'm going to type in trim and just get rid of the extents. So again, we can use trim also on photographs as well. The next thing to go over, and I think I explained this in another, under the properties, and of course the material of this image, it comes in actually as a material, which is kind of nice because you can apply it to other things. I typically give it some transparency because that is way easier to trace than it is just trying to get some colors on there and things like that. But you might have guessed it, we just got to trace this bad boy. And Polyline is probably my favorite tool in doing so. Another thing that's great is you can hold shift in order to keep things orthogonal, but let's face it, at the end of the day, just like we do in freehand, just like we do in any project, you really got to start off by tracing it. Now, in my case, I definitely know I'm going to want to model some of those buildings. So I'm going to type in buildings layer. I'm going to go with a red for today, just so I can see it a little bit better. And let's go ahead and make one of these buildings today. Arguably, maybe the easier one, this early high school college, or even this building. And to be fair, this is just a massing model. At the end of the day, we're not like trying to make every window, make every door, the wood slats. We're not, arguably, I just want to show you how to make the roof and the basic outline. And arguably, some professors would say, don't even do the roof, right? It's just a massing model. I want to show you something today, right? And especially, you know, how to make something like this. But it really does all start from drawing it in 2D. So I'm going to lock this picture down. So just by typing lock, keep in mind you can type in unlock to, of course, unlock everything in the page. You can also just lock that layer. So there are a couple of options there. But let's say, I don't know, I'm going to go with this simple building today. And obviously I'd start off with some rectangles, literally draw kind of the extents of the box. And as you can imagine, we got some other extents of that box. So I'd probably want to go with a polyline and just draw it by hand. Fake it till you make it, because again, nobody's going to stare at the existing buildings and goes, you know, I don't think it really looks like that outside. Nobody's going to do that, of course, in architecture. And that's looking pretty good. To be fair, man, I don't even care sometimes if like that comes up, because again, nobody's ever going to see it. But we can start off with there. And let's say, you know, I got every single building, you know, I traced everything out. But what's, again, really nice about that is I can still make a three-dimensional diagram, even in a kind of a flat way too. So clearly, I'm not trying to confuse you guys, but there are so many options we can do with this. And I'm really open to seeing what you want to bring to the table, or, you know, what's feasible for you right now. So as you guessed, we'll extrude this. And we have to ask ourselves, well, how many feet is it? Right. Well, I might need to actually go back to my my model and take a look at it and just go, well, oh, okay. Well, I think it's about 2 stories. I'm just going to guess that's about 10 feet, 20 feet, you know, pretty generic. Again, I'm not trying to literally model it, but I'm going to go ahead and extrude and go up 10 feet. 10-foot symbol. Awesome. I'm going to turn it into a shaded view because it is wireframe by default. But I can cap that, make another copy. And seriously, for studio, shoot, many studio professors would be impressed just with that, right? Just knowing that you got this 3-dimensionality of the building. However, keep in mind it is pretty less detailed, right? If I wanted to add more detail, like say the roof, let's go over it, right? How do we build the roof? How do we model the roof, I should say? So the next thing that we can do is, you guessed it, we got to trace that. Now that's looking a little complex if you ask me. So let's start off small and trace it. Right, we always got to trace it.
Is that why you kind of like went slightly inward for that overhang, or what?
Correct. Right, because we know that there's some overhang. Right, that's my A-team thinking. Right, you guys have been in studio before, you know, right? I'm a fan of straight lines, so go with the perpendicular, and, you know, that's not a big deal. But, you know, my inner perfectionist is killing me. I'm a little OCD, I will admit. But it works out pretty well for architecture. Now, in my case, I'm going to fake the rest by drawing some lines. And once I get one line right, I mean, I can work smarter and just mirror that line. Right, and get some of that information. But what's nice about this is I can decide if I don't have time to model it, I've already got it in 2D, I can make a nice diagram, give it some line weight, and they immediately know what this building is because of its proximity and, you know, things like that. But, you know, let's trace it out. Bless you. It'll also teach you a lot about roofs, by the way. You'll see all these ridges, all these hip joints, and again, fake it till you make it. If you know it's actually going to complete somewhere else, you know, complete it somewhere else. But sometimes I'll just go with the 45s. Again, like I said, we're going to use some of this information to model it. But at the end of the day, I might use it for a two-dimensional diagram. I don't know. But not gonna lie to you, in an office setting, this is not outside the realm of possibility. I've been hired for just digital modeling alone. Bless you. Those allergies are brutal. But let's take that entire piece. Let's trim off what we don't need. So something like that. Nah. Think I went overboard? Nope. Yeah, fair enough. But what is nice about that is, of course, now I can hide these two. Boop. And, well, that's actually not looking too bad either. But I can take this piece, boop, and put it up how many feet? 20? Why not? So we'll take our move and go up 20 feet. Sweet. From there, I can kind of put these together. Right? So you can almost kind of start to make a wireframe. Right? So I can take all these pieces, and as long as they're touching, I can join them. Oh, there was that other trim that I needed. Boop. And join them. Oh, I don't think I can join during a trim. Let's try that again. And in fact, stuff that won't go together just won't join, by the way. So do keep that in mind. In my case, I just want the ridges. So I just want to join those ridges so I can kind of make a wireframe, essentially. Now this is very basic modeling. I would say it's a little old school, especially compared to the next tool I'm going to show you that makes an automatic digital model from Google. But let's face it, Google sometimes doesn't have those rural areas or isolated things, and what are you going to do if you don't have the internet? Just be like, sorry, I can't model anything for you. I know you hired me to model your site plan, but I can't do it because I use tools that are outside the realm. Or for instance, my case, I have a Mac where that tool doesn't work, or I have a school computer where maybe that plugin's not quite working. Now it should of course work on your personal computer, but we'll get there. Now for here, I want to take this piece, kind of want to join them, and if they don't join, that's okay. I can actually take isolated points. So for instance, I could take this point right here, and I can move it up. You guys see where I'm going with this? So I can take multiple points and almost make like a digital model. Now I'd have to start with a wireframe, right? So not too shabby. Let's keep going. Fake it till I make it. I'll take these 2 points. Boop. Moving on up. Now I'd want to move them up the same distance because, well, obviously if it's a real roof, we want those ridges to come up. But again, it's a little bit more advanced. You'll notice I have to kind of move around a little bit. Kind of have to find these points and then find ones that I think are going to be in the same plane. So these 4 right here, maybe those go up a little bit. And obviously maybe we take this one, and you can move points, by the way. So I just typed in move and you can connect them to other things. That alone right there, let's face it, I don't even need to really model it, and it still kind of has a three-dimensionality. And what's nice about that is, well, if I choose this direction, again, still three-dimensional, but it's clearly transparent. So the next thing to do is arguably one of my favorite tools is the 3 or 4 point tool. You can click any 3 points or 4, enter, and it makes a surface. Some of us definitely probably know this tool, you know, all too well. But it is one of those things that only has 3 or 4 points. So, right? I might just need to make a triangle and make multiple triangles. In fact, I'll go with that one. And as you can see, 4 points. Starting to get a little funky there. Right? So, didn't hit the right point. Let's try that again. Boop. And this is where apparent intersection, so that is actually an option, by the way. Keep in mind, your OSnap tools are the best. However, don't ever use near, because it gets wild. As you see, there's a little bit of a ridge problem. Again, not the end of the world, because once I hit render, you can barely see it. Right? So again, tit for tat, but let's face it, if you don't call out the errors, most likely people don't actually notice them. But let's get some more modeling. Another thing that a professor taught me as well is you could basically do all these 3.4 surfaces and then rise it, just like what we did with the wireframe. But I find it a little easier to explain what we're doing, and that there's some options that, shoot, dude, I don't have enough time to do that. And, you know, you can kind of fake it till you make it as well. But as you can see, I kind of have to build it, right? And at the end of the day, it's going to teach us a little bit about what's going on. Now, you'll notice that I've even started correcting my own lines, like where I notice I mess up or, you know, things like that. And essentially build it out of 3 or 4 points. Now, this could be time consuming, but, you know, if it was my job in terms of building a site model for my studio, that's kind of expected. Right? They're going to be looking at you like, oh yeah, that's the modeling guy, right? Or gal. Let me get a little fancy there with the spices. But as you can see, a little time consuming. But also nicely enough, we only have to do it one time. So, and even if you accidentally do mess up, right? So for instance, you know, this point's a little off. We'll take that one, enter. I can still actually select both items. F10, as you guys know, brings up all points. We'll take that point, move it, and my computer will freak out. Not too shabby. Let's complete it, just for the sake of completion. Again, sorry, I'm not trying to make this take too much time. I'm trying to go as fast as humanly possible without losing you. And again, I'm just hitting enter every time I either have 3 or 4 points. Arguably one of the oldest tools in Rhino. It's one of the first ones to ever come out. This was like mind-boggling back in the day. Now it's just like, what? I gotta do it manually? And fake it till we make it. Sweet. So once I was done with all that, I could take it into a rendered mode, and not too shabby. I could show my other objects, and of course now we got a pretty sensible model, right? So again, another thing that's great about this is, well, if I was to do a clipping plane, which I'll show a little bit later. Let's do a nice view of this. We can actually take a section of that model now, which is, I don't know about you, extremely useful in a studio situation. So don't get me wrong, it'll feel like you're doing more work than is necessary, and then I'm right there with you guys. Nobody wants to do work that isn't going to be used, right? However, welcome to architecture, because it happens all the time. But again, at the end of the day, this is for your portfolio, so you may actually come back in a year and go, you know what? I'm so glad I modeled this because I messed up that drawing, or I didn't like the design. I kind of want to rework it. Damn, I didn't do any of the work. So I end up having to do the work anyway. However, okay, so this would definitely conclude tracing, basic modeling, and, you know, starting to figure it out. So even if you had something complex like a dome, right? I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some basic shapes like domes, for instance, or toroidal items. But I'm pretty sure there's actually a dome. Paraboloid. I didn't know you could do that. That's pretty cool. But there are some items where it's, you know, you could use it, right? We can get some dome-like stuff and obviously cut that in half, and we don't necessarily have to like model triangulated dome, for instance, but I could simplify. I'm thinking of that building right next to us that has a little, you know, brick dome. Like, I wouldn't sit there and model every brick. I would just fake it, right? You know, go with the basic massing modeling of that situation. The next item and tool is a little bit more advanced, and I will say I did test it out on the school computer. It did load the plugin, but I only had about 30 seconds before, you know, we had to get started. So I would definitely try this one on your own computer, just because it'll work a lot better. You won't have permissions that are stopping you because it's your computer. The first thing to get familiar with is my all-time favorite website, and it's called Food, the number 4, and Rhino. Also, if you type in Rhino Food in Google, you will actually get foods that are for rhinoceroses, so be careful. It is food for rhino. But what's nice about our licensing, and this is also why I had to confirm that I wasn't a robot. Oh man, curtains. Man, that would be a great bedding situation. Curtains, curtains, curtains. Who's got the curtains, curtains? It's gonna ask me again, isn't it? Oh man, there's some curtains there. See, this is why I hate these things. You know what I'm talking about? Where it's like, click all the boxes that are motorcycle and it's got like one little box of like the wheel.
I always think
I'm like,
that.
son
I
of
don't know
a...
if that's like to trick you or not.
I know. I honestly think we're just training AI. But in our case, wonderful website, and you can get really lost into this one. Don't get me wrong. I loved it. I mean, shoot, there's like a Revit plugin. There's just so many things that Rhino can do. Some of them are paid for. Some of them only work for Windows. Some of them only work for Mac. So, I mean, get familiar. But the one that we'll be using today is basically importing. So if you type in Get 3D, there's this wonderful tool called Google Earth Importer. The name is in there, right? However, it does only work for Windows, but you know, some of the models that it produces are pretty good, especially if somebody modeled them in Google Earth. Like, you'll notice which ones are good and which ones are like, whoa, this one's just based on like a crappy 3D scan. And the trees, you know what I'm talking about? They look kind of like somebody crunched up a bunch of paper, right, essentially. And you don't necessarily want those. But it definitely does have some options that I can't necessarily show you today. But if you have Rhino 7, it works for Rhino 7. If you got Rhino 8, wonderful. Most of us do. And you can install it for that. Another way to install it is actually to go to Rhino, type in Package Manager. Usually the first one that comes up. Thank you for writing that down, because I don't know how many people are going to ask me, what was that, that you typed in? Package Manager. So Food for Rhino is actually, it comes from Rhino. Right, so everything that you download there, it's not like, you kind of have to sign up for it like an app store if I was to make one myself. So there is some regulation, but what's nice about that is it's actually embedded. Food for Rhino is in Rhino 8. So you'll notice if I type in Get 3D here, that will get a familiar tool. Now, it won't show up on the Mac because it's not compatible with the Mac, right? But some other ones that I like are like my parking plugin that I have. And of course, Parking Square. And I've shown this actually in my D4 class where you draw an item and it makes a parking lot for you, right? So there's some really cool plugins in here. And I'll go over much more, especially as we keep talking and doing tutorials for the A-team. Because there's ones that make stairs, there's ones that can definitely save us some time, especially if you already know how to manually model those stairs and rails, which, by the way, for Team B, that's what our next assignment is. But I would get a little bit more familiar, and obviously once you find something, you can install it. It will install, basically downloading that file, and you hit apply. Most of the time you do have to restart Rhino for those to be effective. So you'll restart Rhino, you'll type in the command now. So when I type in parking, oh, actually it's a Grasshopper. I don't want to get into Grasshopper today, but it's a Grasshopper plugin, right? So it'll come up when Grasshopper comes up. But just to recap, just because it's looking a little dry here, again, I want to draw everything. I want to trace the parking lots. I want to trace where the tree locations are. I don't have to like draw a manual tree. I can just have a tree layer and start drawing circles. In fact, I can hit spacebar, and I don't know about you, but this beats the hell out of Illustrator. Just coming up with stuff every day. Now I got these placeholders that I could even go back into, and if I wanted to get the Illustrator tree, you know what I'm talking about, from Pip My Drawing, I could definitely now have these place markers to obviously substitute those, right? But let's face it, we're pressed for time all the time, and this tree, I don't know if you know, is good enough for Escamilla. So sometimes it's great. Sorry, was there a question?
No, I was just gonna say it beats like tracing it like in actually like the
That
circles.
too.
Like, actually takes kind of a long time.
It really does. And to be fair, even in this view, again, I would just go to town, especially since right now it looks like I got a lot of trees. So again, just putting some placeholders alone. And don't be confused by the shade and shadow element too. Again, if you want shade and shadow, you can just copy each tree. In fact, I could take the entire layer of something. I don't know if I actually showed this yet, but you can right click and Oh my gosh, why is it? Oh, I don't have anything in that layer. Well, that would do it. Where's something where I do have a lot in this layer? Select objects of this layer, and it's going to select every object of that layer. I can make a copy and just give us a shade and shadow. See what I'm saying? So again, I mean, there's just some excellent tools, and it's really just the really simple tools being used in an advanced way. So again, I didn't want to just throw you into the Viper pit and just go, hey, model it. So this is definitely kind of a small section, right? However, I would say the next piece that we have is, of course, the abstract diagram or the form idea. Now, there's a couple of options here. One thing I would suggest is, dude, do assignment 3, or sorry, circle, got to spell circle correctly. Just abstract here on the site. I mean, who cares, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, let's face it, we only have 10 weeks on this, and arguably I do want to teach you guys Revit in the last 2, so we really only have 6 weeks from today, a typical regular project. And let's face it, you usually only spend about a week in site analysis, so don't overdo it, right? Don't be like, sir, I didn't finish the site model because I really want to manually do the whole thing. That's a great ambition, but keep in mind, I'm going to treat Team A a little bit more like a studio project, and we're going to move on, right? So it'll be up to you if you want to model it and take some extra time to do so. And again, I think it'd be worth it, especially in a portfolio sense. But one thing I could argue is just start modeling here, you know, no big deal. The next thing I wanted to go over is some extra tools that we can use in modeling. So for instance, there's some cool lofting tools. And there's also some really cool, just some cool stuff that we can do in forms. So I showed a little bit of network surface last time, and you know, let's get rid of this clipping plane real quick. Just some unique things. So I don't know about you, but I often really struggle with making roofs. So one of the first tools that I wanted to show is a roof-like element or some sort of curvilinear surface that I think could be really interesting. And it's really just kind of what we can do with lofting. So for instance, I'm just going to make a couple of lines just to kind of show what I mean. In my case, unlike, actually we'll do one orthogonally, like that. And we'll have it switch to something curvilinear. I'd probably want these to all be the same length, but you know, for the sake of tutorial today, I just kind of want to show off the tools. Sweet. But let's say I had the idea, and you know, I was thinking about this form, so I'm going to take each of these lines, I'm going to loft them, and rebuild something. Now this is where it does start to get a little advanced, but potentially I could use this as a form, right? I could even slice it out with wire cut in a circle and really have an idea, right? Just like that. But to show you what I mean, how you can start to add these tools up together, in my case, I'm going to go with something like loose or tight, right? As you can see, that definitely makes some different things. I can rebuild this object to be a little bit more accurate, say like 50 pieces. Press OK, and it's going to give me a little bit more, right, in terms of, you know, what that does. I'm going to wire cut it just like I said, but I can't wire cut a surface, so I do need to give it some thickness. So I'm going to offset surface. Let's give it 12 inches, right? Typical roof size, if you will. So it's already got some thickness, and I don't know, I don't like these little like tapered edges, so I kind of want to go with the circle. And again, you don't have to copy obviously what I'm doing. I'm really just showing it for the sake of to know how to use the tool. So I'll take that piece a little bit bigger and I'll wire cut it, right? Obviously I need that outside of my element, so and I may want to keep these pieces, right? Maybe I don't want to do that quite yet. I might need to show step-by-step diagrams, so always make a copy. Especially before you do something complex too, let's face it. It doesn't always work and you have to go back and do stuff over and over again. So in my case, wrong direction, that's okay. We'll choose our Z direction. Straight through the object. Voila. Now I can take this piece and now I have a form, right? And I could even start to just kind of do that in sort of a void, if you will. I don't necessarily have to connect it to the site. That's just an option. Like, if you want to start to work together and be influenced by the site, I am more encouraging than ever, right? That is, of course, something that we do in studio. But if you're finding it kind of restricting, kind of hard to think, because it is kind of hard to design in a computer, by the way. Half of your brain is trying to learn the computer, the other half is trying to be artistic, right? And for some, especially myself, that is really hard to do. So one thing I would suggest is draw some forms first, right? Based on what you know about lofting, what you know about network surface, you can kind of start to plan ahead for the computer. But one thing I would definitely suggest, since we're at San Antonio College, draw it first. Draw some ideas, some forms, right? What you maybe want to get inspired by. Another thing is, well, you might just be out of ideas. I don't know, I often say this, but when you're not inspired, read. When you are inspired, work, right? So it's okay to take a look at Pinterest. Take a look at books. You know, I always say Pinterest just because we're so connected to the internet. But, I mean, my goodness, I find forms all the time that I go, man, I want to learn how to make that. And something like that, I start to see, okay, it's got a circle at the top. I could do another circle down here, and I can do a smaller circle down here. So let me see what I mean by that. I'll take this circle, we'll copy it. And just to kind of get those proportions, you know, I'll take this one, make it a little bit bigger. I'll take this one, make it a little bit smaller. Oh, not that small. And I'll take these three pieces and I'll loft them. Oop. Try that again. Just so you can see it a little bit better. Loft. And voila, you know, I've suddenly got this unique form that, you know, that I was inspired by. Now, obviously, it's way out of scale, right? And of course, I could just shrink it down, but this is why I've separated those diagrams. One is definitely about the site and a little bit more practicality, right? We got to either trace it or start modeling. But then when it comes to the form, you might just have so many options that you're a little bit overwhelmed. So it is absolutely okay, guys, to find an image where you do like the forms. For instance, I don't know, form finding architecture. You get all kinds of ideas, right? Just in case you didn't have any. However, I know all of you guys are probably inspired daily, but it's okay to be inspired by something and to go, well, can I make that, right? And if you can't, let me know. I'll help you figure it out too, right? Which is, of course, the whole point. But in our case, we do have until next Wednesday. I wouldn't get started next Tuesday. I would get, of course, started today. But just to kind of recap, we went over, obviously, the first diagram and getting it ready. We went over some manual modeling, of course, the triangle method, so that 3 or 4 point surface, that is literally what it's called. We also went over kind of the basics of just like, you know, simplifying that model as well. We went over a couple of options for the form finding diagram. We can either make it on the site and, you know, go ham and just make an abstract diagram on the site, more than welcome to it. Or you can go stand alone and start building forms, right? Be inspired by those forms. Shoot, you'd be surprised what just scaling something in a unique way can start to inspire. Now, I'm not saying that might be our final thing, but that might be eventually what inspires the final project. Keep in mind, I'm not expecting a building on Wednesday. I'm expecting art, sculpture. In fact, one of the best examples that I like to give is Santiago Calatrava. So I don't know how to spell that, but Google does. Santiago Calatrava. Did I mention I was dyslexic? Sculpture. And very often he actually sculpts the item before he makes it. So again, what I'm asking you to do for this project is, let's see the sculpture first. Don't worry so much about the end product yet, right? Because it may change. In fact, you may make several sculptures that we get to look at and look at an iterative process and go, man, I really like number 4. I'm so glad you did 12. And maybe 12 should go in the portfolio really nice and small. But that 12th one maybe gets the largest, it has the best hierarchy, and stands out on the diagram. Those kinds of things. Am I making some sense here?
Yeah.
Hopefully a little helpful, right? At least in terms of direction and definitely where you want to go with this, right? But yeah, it's okay to be inspired by a bird. It's okay to be inspired by a piano. But don't make a literal bird and don't make a literal piano, right? For instance, I mean, I love the curvilinear element that I'm seeing in that bird, and we have the ability to do so. I don't know about you, but I mean, one of the first things I always do is trace. Oh, that bird is not polygonal. That bird is, sort of curvilinear. Shit, there's my whole architectural concept right there. And it simply came from the very profile of a bird. You'd be surprised how much this happens in architecture, by the way. Very often we apply certain cultural elements of our region. For instance, that bird may be taboo in Spain versus this is the iconic bird of China. You see what I'm saying here? So we don't always use the same abstraction everywhere we go, but very often we use the same methodologies. And let's face it, this is just step one of talking to the computer, getting familiar and getting confident with the computer, which is why I highly suggest that you sketch it first, because it's a lot easier to look at your sketch, and it's a lot easier for me to look at the sketch and go, how do we make this, right? And that was definitely something I definitely struggled as a student with this program. My ideas were much bigger. I could sketch, and I can see in my mind what I want it to be. But then I'd ask my professor, how do I make this? And they go, I don't know, figure it out, kid. So I won't do that to you. I'll help you, but I won't necessarily say that I know how to model everything either. I might teach myself along the way as well. Anyway, I'll end it there for today, unless there's some major questions that you'd like me to do, or something that maybe just popped up in your head that, hey, can you model that? Or I'm thinking this already. What do you think? Absolutely. Sorry, I think Noel got his hand up first.
Oh, yeah, you were?
No, you're good.
Okay, I was gonna just ask really quick. When starting it, what would you say is like the easiest part to, I guess, start on? Like, would you recommend doing the roads and then doing like the sidewalks after and then buildings?
I would get familiar with it, but you're exactly right. I'd start off with kind of the big layer, kind of like topography, which is why I kind of brought in that typography. I'd go with major roads. Then you can almost offset lines from those roads to get sidewalks. You can get building pads. I mean, it really just depends how you want to dissect it. I was always a weirdo and did like trees first because it was familiar, it was circles, and I felt like I was getting more done, which I don't know about you guys, but half the time in studio is like, man, I just want to get something done and I want to turn my brain on autopilot real quick. So sometimes I gravitate, for me, I'd often do the easy stuff first and leave the hard stuff to the bottom. Now I do hard stuff first and leave the easy stuff to the kind of brain dead work, if you will. It's a really good question. I would say I'd refer to Bob Ross on this one. I usually go with background information and build up to the foreground, but that's just kind of the artist in me. If I'm pressed for time, I do the hard stuff first because I know it's going to take me the longest, and I speed through the kind of easy stuff. So, good question. Gavin?
Like earlier, I was trying to split like a box,
Okay.
but I didn't, like, is there a way, like, because I know we've been doing like the Boolean split and stuff like that with the wire cut.
Sure.
But is there a way, like, you could just, like, get a line and then just follow it around the box? Like, for example, if I'm on the top view of a box and I just want to cut like a square in the middle.
Yeah.
Is there a way I could just cut something?
I don't know if you could just cut a square in the middle. I would say wire cut is probably the best one for that one. Very often we need like tight measurements, but one thing I would say too, if I understand correctly, let's hide this stuff for a second. A little ugly. But I could theoretically get a box, and especially if I knew that that was 25 by 25 by 25. And I wanted to exactly subtract a certain box, or if I wanted to start to subdivide this layer, there is a tool. So for instance, you can instantly, I believe it's control. Is it? No, not control. Option. I gotta find it again. Is it shift command? Yeah. So shift command, and this is both true of Windows or Mac. If I hold shift and control or command, it immediately goes, hey, like, which piece are you talking about? But what's kind of nice is I can click on that and immediately change the box. So that is kind of nice. There's immediately kind of a push and pull. What's also kind of nice about that, I believe, oh, that's what it is. If I hold shift and move it, or no, it's not shift. Is it option? You can take a piece out. I just got to get familiar with the tools again. 1 second. So shift command to select something. All right. And I believe it's, is it control? Nope, it's not control. Is it option? There's a way to kind of extrude that out. To answer your question, yes. Do I know it this very second? Live? No. Right. But I am gonna, yeah, I wanna figure it out. So again, holding Shift and Control if you're on Windows to select that object. Maybe it's Command? Yes. So if I hold Command or Control on Windows, I can actually make multiple subdivisions. And what's kind of nice about that, again, I can hold Shift Command, hold Command. I can kind of do like a push-pull thing, right? What's also nice about that is I can actually do a correct dimension too. So again, Shift Command. It's like playing a piano, right? I got to remember the keys again. But I do think you can actually control the distance of this as well by just typing that in. But yeah, just like SketchUp, you know, I mean, this is definitely a very familiar option in SketchUp. We can do stuff like this all day. Is that what kind of your
Pretty
question
much,
was?
yeah,
Okay.
Because I was trying to like just mess around with forms like that. But
And I can isolate that. And my goodness, I mean,
yeah, that's much easier because I was like.
there's a
trying to
form
build
right there,
box
right?
and-
that could be my extract form, and now it just needs like a grid element, maybe some volume, and man, I got a form diagram. Yes, sir.
Although I just said it, but how do you do it again? It's Control then.
Yes, let's recap. So I'm gonna say it for Macintosh first. On Macintosh, it's Shift and Command. When I do that, basically it goes, hey, do you want the vertex? Do you want the face? Do you want the vertex again? And basically it's asking, and I'm holding it, by the way. So I'll click on the face that I want. Then on Macintosh, I'll hold Command and move it. I gotta hold the command. And if I keep going, it's gonna keep making subdivisions. So that's kind of nice. And that's because I keep holding Command. Now, if it's Windows, I'll hold Shift and Control. And I'll hold Control in order to do that.
And which one was the one without the subdivisions? Just the straight extrude. There's one that doesn't.
Oh,
have
yeah.
subdivisions.
That one you can actually do by move plane. So like, if you just move it out and don't hold anything, it'll just extrude it.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, holding that Control or Command will add the subdivision lines. But what's kind of nice about that too is I can select these particular lines as well. So again, Shift, Command, I can isolate. Let's get that. I can do that too. See where I'm going with this? It's a game changer, right? Especially for form. Thank you for asking that question, by the way. Great question. Little ugly, kind of looking like a snake, but
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah.
Helpful?
Very.
Sweet. No other questions, guys? We'll leave it there for today.